Cleveland thought they were preparing for a normal game week. Film sessions, walkthroughs, final tweaks before facing a Tennessee team desperate for a win. But everything shifted the moment one unexpected visitor stepped into the Browns facility. The energy changed instantly, like someone flipped the lights on in a room that had been quietly holding its breath. And the craziest part? It wasn't a player. It wasn't an owner. It wasn't even someone from the NFL. It was Deion Sanders. Primetime didn't announce he was coming. He didn't need to. He walked through the doors with the same presence he carried throughout his entire playing career. Calm, confident, and unmistakably in control. And as soon as he arrived, the atmosphere shifted. Players gravitated toward him. Staff members paused what they were doing just to catch a glimpse. Even veterans who've seen everything couldn't help but look up as he moved through the hallways like the building belonged to him. And this is all happening the night before Shedeur Sanders, his son, the fifth-round pick who's been outperforming expectations every single week, goes head-to-head with Cam Ward, the highly celebrated #1 overall pick. A matchup that was already generating buzz suddenly felt like something much bigger, something layered with pressure, legacy, and silent expectations. But the moment that set the internet on fire wasn't just Deion's arrival. It was the brief, wordless, instantly viral encounter between Deion and Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski. A handshake, a few quiet words, a smile that left fans arguing online about what the two men truly meant. Was it respect? Was it advice? Was it a subtle challenge? Maybe even a reminder that Shadur is ready for more? Nobody knows. And that uncertainty is exactly why the clip exploded across social media. Because whenever Deion Sanders appears, people don't just watch, they analyze, speculate, and read between every line. And the timing of this encounter, paired with swirling rumors about internal pressure, potential coaching changes, and questions about how much the Browns are actually willing to trust Shadur, turned a simple visit into a moment that could reshape everything. One thing is certain, the Browns were preparing for a game. Now they're walking into a spotlight. The night before a game is usually predictable in the NFL. Players lock in, coaches finalize their scripts, and everyone quietly settles into the rhythm of preparation. But this time, Cleveland wasn't dealing with a routine buildup. The anticipation surrounding the Browns tight because this wasn't just another game on the schedule. It was a collision of narratives, expectations, and two rookie quarterbacks whose careers are already being compared like they're chapters in the same book. On one side, you've got Cam Ward, the #1 overall pick, the quarterback who was supposed to come in and instantly reshape a struggling Titans franchise. The one analysts praised for his composure, arm talent, and ability to generate offense out of thin air. Titans fans see him as a franchise savior. The organization sees him as their long-term identity. And with every snap, Cam is reminded that being drafted first isn't just an honor. It's a standard he has to meet from day one. On the other side is Shedeur Sanders, the 144th pick, a draft position still talked about like it was some kind of football crime, even though fans and analysts repeatedly argued he had first-round talent. Instead of having a city crown him before he'd taken a snap, Shadur entered the league with a chip on his shoulder and something to prove. And oddly enough, that underdog status has become his greatest weapon. Their paths couldn't be more different, yet here they are, facing each other in a moment that somehow feels like a referendum on both franchises. Cam is trying to justify why Tennessee placed the future of their team in his hands. Shadur is trying to prove that Cleveland got one of the biggest steals in recent draft history. But the real tension isn't about stats or draft rankings. It's about timing. Both rookies know this matchup is more than a game. It's an opportunity to rewrite narratives that people assume are already finished. And with watching every moment unfold, the stakes suddenly feel higher. Because when a game carries this much story, someone's trajectory is about to change. The Browns facility had its usual pregame buzz, trainers hustling between rooms, assistants updating play sheets, players locked into their routines. But the second Deion Sanders stepped through those doors, that familiar rhythm snapped. It wasn't chaotic. It wasn't loud. Yet everyone felt it instantly. Crime time has always carried a certain gravity, and in Cleveland that night, the pull was undeniable. He wasn't wearing a coach's badge. He wasn't announced through PR channels. He didn't demand attention. But every person in that building reacted the same way. They stopped what they were doing and paid attention. And it wasn't the kind of attention given to a celebrity. It was the respect you show someone. Charisma and presence. Players who normally walk with headphones on suddenly found themselves looking up. Coaches paused conversations mid-sentence. Even staff members who've seen countless stars pass through the league couldn't help but track Deion's movements as he walked the halls like they were familiar territory. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation, just the natural confidence of a man who knows exactly who he is and why his presence matters. And that's what changed the tone of everything, because Deion wasn't just visiting Cleveland. He wasn't just checking in on his son. He was stepping directly into a narrative already filled with pressure, expectation, and questions about the Browns' future. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. Shedeur Sanders wasn't just preparing for another game. He was preparing with his father. The icon, the mentor, the walking blueprint of NFL swagger, watching from only a few feet away. Players like David Njoku treated Prime like an old friend. Their jokes, their ease, their open admiration, it all showed how deeply Deion's legacy reaches into today's generation. And when Deion interacted with Shadur, it didn't feel like a father hyping up his son. It felt like a champion, quietly preparing another champion. But the most talked about moment of the night wasn't the laughter or the greetings. It was the quiet, almost cinematic meeting between Deion Sanders and Kevin Stefanski. A handshake, a few subtle nods, a moment that left fans dissecting every frame like investigators. Not because anyone knew what they said, but because everyone wondered what it meant. And that's when the questions started swirling. The moment the internet did what it always does. It paused, rewound, zoomed in, and began dissecting every frame like it was evidence in a courtroom. Because buried inside that short clip, barely a few seconds long, was the encounter nobody saw coming. Deion Sanders and Kevin Stefanski sharing a brief handshake and a quiet exchange. No microphones, no subtitles, no clear context. Just two men, one representing Cleveland's present, and the other representing a legacy that refuses to fade. And instantly, the questions exploded. What did Deion say? What did Stefanski say back? Why did the interaction feel so significant? Fans flooded comment sections with theories. Reporters replayed the clip on live streams. Even neutral observers admitted the body language was interesting. Stefanski looked respectful, almost cautious, while Deion carried the relaxed confidence of someone who understood the impact of his presence without needing to say much at all. Some viewers claimed Stefanski looked nervous, like he suddenly realized the father of the quarterback everyone keeps begging him to unleash was standing right in front of him. Others said the exchange seemed warm, even supportive, like two leaders acknowledging each other's roles in Shadur's development. And then there were the more speculative angles. The idea that Deion might have been quietly asking for more opportunities for his son, or subtly challenging Stefanski to trust Shadur's instincts. But the truth is simple. Nobody outside that moment knows exactly what was said. Everything else is interpretation, emotion, and the natural desire to understand a scene that feels bigger than its runtime. Still, the timing is what fuels the mystery. This wasn't a preseason visit. This wasn't a casual off-season drop-in. This happened the night before a game with unusually high expectations, swirling rumors about the Browns' coaching situation, and a fan base hungry to see Shadur unleashed at full capacity. And that's why the clip spread like wildfire. It wasn't the handshake itself. It was everything surrounding it. The stakes, the tension, the symbolism. A legendary father, a rising rookie, a head coach under pressure, a team trying to find its identity. One brief encounter created a storyline no one can ignore. As the handshake clip continued spreading online, another conversation began resurfacing, one that had been lingering quietly in Brown circles for months. Reports have suggested, not confirmed, that Cleveland's front office has been exploring changes in their offensive leadership for 2026. And among the names floating around in sports talk radio and insider forums, one stood out more than the rest: Jon Gruden. Now, no one from the Browns has publicly verified these discussions, but rumors have a way of gaining traction when the team's performance feels inconsistent. And Cleveland's offense has been under a microscope all season. Every stalled drive, every conservative play call, every moment where Shadur seemed capable of more, all of it has added fuel to speculation that Kevin Stefanski's seat might be hotter than people think. And it's that backdrop that made Deion's visit so striking. Because when a head coach is already fighting whispers about his future, the last thing he needs is the most charismatic figure in modern football casually walking through his facility, dapping up players, energizing the building, and becoming the center of attention minutes after arriving. Some fans even joked that Deion looked more at home in the Browns facility than Stefanski did. And while that's clearly exaggeration, the vibe was undeniable. Deion drew eyes. Stefanski drew questions. The speculation only intensified when analysts pointed out how Shadur has been performing relative to his draft slot. It's been said that his progression might be outpacing the system he's currently in, and that has naturally led fans to wonder whether Stefanski is fully prepared to develop a quarterback with Shedur's instincts, speed, and improvisational ability. Again, none of this is confirmed criticism, just the kind of chatter that grows louder when expectations shift. And that's where the pressure builds. If the Browns win, Stefanski buys himself time. If Shadur looks electric, the narrative becomes hopeful. But if the offense sputters again, and if Cam Ward outshines Shadur on national coverage, then those swirling rumors about Cleveland exploring outside help could move from online discussion into organizational conversations. That's the storm brewing around Stefanski. It's not just about a game. It's about perception, timing, and the future of a franchise caught between development and expectation. And with Deion Sanders suddenly in the building, everything feels magnified. When Deion Sanders walks into a building, the atmosphere changes instantly. That's not speculation. That's decades of history. Whether he's in Colorado, Dallas, or walking the halls of the Cleveland Browns facility, the energy shifts the moment he steps through the door. And the viral footage captured by well-off media made it clear. Cleveland felt that shift. Players who were halfway through their routines perked up the moment they saw him. Staff members paused mid-task just to catch a glimpse. Even veterans, men who've been in locker rooms with legends, couldn't help but gravitate toward Prime. It wasn't chaotic or disruptive. It was magnetic. It was the presence of someone who commands respect without ever needing to ask for it. And that's where things get interesting. Because when the father of your young quarterback suddenly becomes the most influential figure in the building for an afternoon, you better believe people notice. Not in a hostile way, but in a very real, very human way. Deion represents something bigger than football. He represents leadership, swagger, culture, and the ability to elevate the people around him simply by believing in them. For a team searching for direction, some players saw it as a confidence boost for Shadur. If Prime believes in him that deeply, maybe it's a sign that Shadur is destined for more responsibility in the offense. Others viewed it as a subtle reminder to the coaching staff that this young quarterback isn't just another rookie. He comes from a lineage of expectation and excellence. And then there's the Stefanski angle. It's impossible not to acknowledge how this looked from the outside. Rumors about the Browns evaluating their coaching future were already circulating. Stefanski is fighting to maintain control of a team that has struggled with consistency. And then Deion, arguably the most influential parental figure in sports, walks through the halls and instantly becomes the biggest presence in the room. Nobody said Stefanski felt threatened, but people definitely wondered how the optics would affect the narrative. End. Because stories like this aren't just about the moment, they're about the interpretation. Deion didn't give a speech. He didn't call out the coaches. He didn't make demands. He simply showed up, and sometimes that's enough to shift the balance of the room. For most rookies in the NFL, the pressure comes from the playbook, the speed of the game, and the responsibility of proving you belong. But for Shedeur Sanders, the pressure is layered, heavier, and far more public than anything a typical rookie faces. When your father is one of the biggest cultural forces in sports, someone whose every move gets captured, dissected, and debated, you don't just play football. You perform under a spotlight that follows you everywhere. And the moment Deion stepped into that Browns facility, that spotlight only grew brighter. Not because Deion said anything controversial, and not because he demanded anything from the organization. Instead, his presence alone reinforced something everyone already knows, but doesn't always say out loud. Shadur isn't just a player. He's a brand, a storyline, a future franchise centerpiece waiting to be unleashed. That creates a very specific kind of pressure. Teammates start to wonder what his ceiling is. Coaches start to consider whether they're developing him aggressively enough. Fans begin asking why he isn't being highlighted more in the offense. And Shadur, who has always been poised beyond his age, now has to balance meeting external expectations with the internal desire to simply play his style of football. It's a delicate line. On one hand, players love him. The footage shows genuine admiration and comfort around Shadur. He brings a calm confidence that resonates with the locker room. When David Njoku joked about how unstoppable they'd be if he had played with Shadur at Colorado, that wasn't just friendly banter. It was a glimpse of how much trust his teammates already have in him. But on the other hand, he's still a rookie navigating a league that eats young quarterbacks alive. And with Deion arriving the day before a major matchup, the pressure suddenly intensified. Because now the narrative isn't just about winning the game. It's about proving you can perform while the man who built your football identity watches from the stands. Some rookies crumble under that weight. Others use it as fuel. And everything about Shadur suggests he belongs in the second category. But the question now hovering over the Browns facility is simple. Is the coaching staff, as much as this moment revolves around Shadur and Prime, there's another figure caught directly in the middle of the storm, Kevin Stefanski. And whether he admits it publicly or not, the pressure surrounding his future has never been louder. Reports claim there's internal chatter about the Browns exploring offensive changes for next season. Some rumors even suggest former coach John Gruden has been quietly linked to potential play-calling roles in 2026. Nothing confirmed, but enough whispers to make people inside the league raise their eyebrows. And now, on the eve of a pivotal matchup, Deion Sanders walks through the building. Not with demands, not with criticism, just presence. A presence powerful enough to shift how the entire facility feels. That's the part people overlook. Stefanski isn't just preparing for a football game. He's coaching while every camera, every headline, and every fan wonders whether he's on borrowed time. And when a legendary figure like Deion shows up, even briefly, the narrative scales tilt even faster, because it puts an unspoken question into the air. If Shadur is the future, is Stefanski the one who's going to guide him there? That's where the pressure turns from football strategy into career survival. Stefanski knows how the league works. He knows rookie quarterbacks with star power, especially those with massive followings and family influence, change the way front offices think. If the Browns believe Shadur is their long-term answer, the organization will eventually ask whether the coaching staff matches that vision. And with outside noise about Gruden floating around, every decision Stefanski makes feels heavier than usual. Fans online are already speculating about the viral handshake between Stefanski and Deion. They're slowing down clips, analyzing body language, trying to interpret a 3-second interaction like it's state-level diplomacy. Was it respect? Was it tension? Was it nothing at all? Nobody knows, but that's what makes this entire situation so compelling. Because tomorrow's game isn't just a matchup between Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. It's a quiet referendum on Stefanski, a test of whether he can command his locker room, trust his young quarterback, and show the Browns front office he deserves to lead this team into the future. And with Prime watching from the stands, the margin for error just got even thinner. As everything settles heading into game day, one thing has become undeniably clear. This moment in Cleveland is bigger than a single matchup. Bigger than rookie hype, and bigger than any sideline storyline we've seen so far this season. What happened inside that Browns facility wasn't just a father visiting his son. It wasn't just a viral clip or a celebrity cameo. It was a reminder of how quickly the NFL can shift when the right mixture of pressure, expectation, and opportunity collide. Because whether anyone says it out loud or not, Shedeur Sanders has suddenly become the gravitational center of this franchise. Every player feels it, every fan sees it, and every decision-maker in the building knows the organization's future hinges on whether he continues to rise or gets swallowed by the weight of the moment. It's rare for a 5th-round pick to command this much attention, but Shadur isn't your typical rookie. He brings talent and now the presence of a father who understands exactly how to handle the spotlight. And that's where the tension reveals itself. Stefanski isn't just coaching for a win. He's coaching for validation, proof that he's still the right leader for a team on the verge of an identity shift. Rumors suggest the front office is evaluating more than just wins and losses. They're watching how he adapts, how he develops Shadur, and how he navigates pressure when the stakes tighten. For a coach already hearing whispers about outside replacements, even the smallest misstep can become ammunition. But on the other side of this story is Cam Ward, the former #1 pick who now finds himself standing in the crosshairs of a rising star. That adds yet another layer to a matchup already soaked in drama. Two young quarterbacks, two wildly different draft day narratives, and a national audience eager to see which one proves he belongs. And floating over everything is Prime. Not demanding, not interfering, just watching. Yet still influencing everything around him simply by being who he is. So tomorrow isn't just a game. It's a turning point. For Shadur, for Stefanski, for the Browns organization, and maybe even for the future of how this franchise defines success. Whatever happens next, one thing is certain: Cleveland won't forget this moment anytime soon.